Okay.
Yes, please record it. I think I have to be very practical
Mm.
in making sure I do not spread myself too thin.
Mm.
A priority is right now Universal Peace Forum that we are going to register in Geneva first, and then in Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and everywhere, every country. And even this morning, one very important person from United Nations, who is with all the leaders working towards peace, we have decided that I will form a universal peace political party,
Mm.
national peace political party.
Oh,
So,
yes.
like, somehow we need to influence in every sense, every way, political, not in the same way that is right now we know of. Rather, this political party and is universal peace political party, which will have a courage to really tackle what is the most difficult thing for everyone, and but with compassion and with skillful means. I think this is what we this morning just we have started this. So you know, with Universal Peace Sanctuary as a headquarter and Universal Peace Forum as our sort of like a way to move forward,
Mm.
I feel that University of Happiness and many other activities around the world uh, might be a very good partner to uh, do whatever we can in everybody's, you know, according to their ability and interest and passion, because I feel there's nothing that we can exclude. I think this has to be all
Mm.
inclusive
Mm.
in ideas, in geopolitical, connection, and you know, whether it's religious or non-religious, or I think we have to touch the core of humanity.
Mm.
So after having said that, I have a responsibility right now to do the construction of Universal Peace Sanctuary and establish the Universal Peace Forum around the world.
Mm.
And this requires, you know, power, you know, mental power, spiritual
Mm.
power, and financial power,
Mm.
to try to, make it happen. As far as I'm a person, let me introduce Sarita, and
Mm.
who is here, and as one of my assistant here, so she will be listening in if it's okay, so that in the future there is much more and interaction can take place.
Yes.
So since that is my sort of responsibility, uh, I need to know how this group will be able to support, you know, when we are collaborating and with this and those, things that I just mentioned. And from my side, I personally am very happy to participate and support and share, and an in-depth conversation we can have. That is
Mm.
what I can commit. But at the
Mm.
same time, I need to be reciprocated, not for
Yeah.
myself, but for the project that I am leading right now. And that will be very, very helpful, because we need to be very upfront, and we need to be able to truly understand each other.
Mm.
And so I like to hear a little bit on that part, so that accordingly I will be able to allocate my time first.
I think that's very much in line with how I have been thinking. That important process that you are leading, which day by day also hits us clearly right now in Europe, for example, with the really tricky situation emanating also around us. The peace element is just becoming completely vital for everything else. It's very obvious. So yeah, Kris and Ning and others, what do you want to? What's your reflections on what Sherpa Rinpoche was bringing to us?
Yeah, I think for my part on University of Happiness, just like we discussed when you visit the university last time, I think peace and happiness is impact, and I think we can be able to collaborate, and at the same time, I think we can be able to exchange and integrate some of the intellectual and also on a consciousness level also. And we believe that just like we discussed last time, on August 12th, we plan to uh, set up the forum in Thailand to have the CEO and the executive guests to be able to come together and be able to do the spiritual painting on what we are doing now, and we can explain the concept and let them visualize and feeling and articulate it into the painting. Actually, the Master Rinpoche, he met the owner of the big gallery in Thailand. He is one of the richest man in Thailand, and he uh, opened for us to be able to set up the maybe gala dinner and the workshop. I think that will be helping the rest funding for the University Peace Sanctuary in Nepal. And I think that will be a good kick-off for our project. And also, we believe that some of the executive who come in the forum will be able to experience what we discover and what will be the core research that we are doing. And I do believe that before August, we can be able to roll out some of the first draft concept to some of the key customer in Thailand or in Indonesia to be able to see the first draft outcome. And on the August 12th, it will be a good rollout for a larger group in Thailand. And I think it can incorporate. And at the same time, for our University of Happiness, we believe that our Ajarn team will be able to learn to learn from Master Rinpoche on transferring the absolute happiness and perfect freedom that is the valuable knowledge. And I think that will be one of the key ingredients to create the glass loot that I developed the model of the tree, and I think that the perfect freedom will be the grassroots of it. And Master Rinpoche said the absolute happiness should be on top, right? And I think that would be some of the integration. And if we can share the perspective and we come up with some, what do you call, a good model for the humanity, I think it will be integration in the holistic part of the knowledge. And it can be used as a universal, just like you recommend last time.
I can also just give the perspectives from our organization. So I think what you are speaking about, Master Rinpoche, is absolutely aligned with the global development goals movement, which is have hubs and structures in more than 100 countries, and many organizations, academic, policy, and so on, who are engaged. So I would be very honored to sort of see how we can work on the global stage also, with this initiative, together with also having some of the more practical parts also, like how do we make organizations of the day to be pioneers or the first movers and actually applying this way of thinking in their organizations for the places where they're active and for the communities they serve, and all of that. So I think both of those go very well together. But I really recognize the time pressure and how that needs to be. I feel partly the same. Find a way to do this where we feel it is working well, as well as we are progressing, as well as we're keeping it, all other kind of priorities also up. So that balance should be recognized.
Yes. When I involve in anything, and I always like to put 100% of my energy into it. So things should be done in the high standard, where it becomes very effective, and it become very meaningful for everyone. So I think both of you, your organizations, and the Universal Peace vision, I think totally aligning. There's no doubt about that, and I think there is a reason for us to be here together. And I truly appreciate everything that you all are doing already. Now, with Universal Peace Sanctuary, Universal Peace Forum, and for us to be fully involved in any activity, we need to have some kind of binding MOU or agreement, so that I can share with our team members, because for me right now, so far, most of our team members doesn't know that I am even communicating with all of you. So I will have to inform them very soon. So once we inform them, I think we have to, and I myself have no problem. I already understood. I even went to the countryside, to spend some time there in Thailand. So University of Happiness, and a vision and hard work and dedication that they have, I witnessed it. But then we are an organization which is based in USA as a non-profit charitable organization. So, and our time will be, is very important, for us to share in a way that has an impact, and to create a win-win and a situation for everyone, right? So, in that sense, and maybe you guys can advise me and how to go about it, and what you think is feasible. So that way, then I think, and we can all, because at the end of the day, my feeling is universal peace must be established unconditionally, so that it will have a lasting impact in human society, as well as for all creatures. So in that regard, we have to think about long term, and definitely what we are going to do is going to be very successful and beneficial for many, many people, not just CEOs actually, and actually homemakers, and students, and children, and retired people, everybody. I think we will be able to have impact, and by the way we can design this, and then bring about universal value in education, and finding clarity. That I think we need to start first step, with the right kind of understanding, and a right kind of so like a agreement, right? So I'd like to hear from you, all of you, so that maybe soon then we can have it in a written form, so that I can share with our global committee members, where then not only I involve and many more people can involve in making things happen according to your plan, right? So this is what we should do. I feel. You let me know what you guys feel.
Yeah, that will be good. Do you have any format of MOU from IDG in
Yeah,
H4?
we do. We do. Yeah. So
You can send it
we
to
have
us, then we can.
we have a range of different ones depending on really if it's commercial transaction or not, and all of that. So there's yeah, that's it will come out of the I think when we're deciding really what is, and I think there is an interesting perspective on what is the long-term collaborative MOU kind of where this is maybe one of the first things we do, but I already have started to think, Master Rinpoche, about some of the larger events that we are running. We have, for example, a summit where we gather a couple of thousand people, and then we have many people also digitally present in Stockholm, Sweden in October. And if that would be of any interest to explore, I would be very happy to talk to my colleagues in the events team and the lead planning summit lead, Katerina, also maybe seeing if we can invite you to the keynote part of that. I know that you have a lot to do. That would be very interesting to share this ongoing process also to our IDG movement with all kinds of different organizations, everything from CEOs to people in communities to policy leads and so on. Yeah, we can speak more about it, but I think that could be one also an interesting collaboration later on this year.
That's great. And
I think for Universal Peace Sanctuary, my interest would be all those organizations and all those organization members feels the ownership of this Universal Peace Forum and Universal Peace Sanctuary, actually. And my interest, the biggest interest, is if all of them become the stakeholder, and that is how I think we can say that everyone is embracing peace as a priority in their lives. And of course, we can help them how to prioritize and ways to prioritize and what is the meaning of prioritizing peace in their lives. We can bring those clarity and education, curriculum, and guidance, whatever you want to call it. We can definitely provide them, but there has to be this interest where they feel ownership of this project and they feel they are the stakeholders, because I want nothing from anybody other than each and everyone being able to see that you are your best friend. And here, by being part of this, and you are fulfilling your living legacy, this is how I look at it. And for me, Universal Peace Sanctuary is a refuge. It's honored. Everyone is protected, even from destructive thoughts and disturbing emotions and dualistic conception, condition being, and from habitual patterns. So I think we are talking about something not happened so far, and the civilization of mankind in a global scale and in an unconditional way so far. And I feel we have a responsibility here to really have everybody involved in this movement in such a way that global transformation can take place by leading everyone involved in global transformation, how everyone feel liberated and in this very, so that they are able to reclaim their lives in a most meaningful and most satisfying ways. And in my mind, what I'm thinking always is that how each and everyone be able to reap the benefit of their own success. And their success could be as simple as they are healthy and healthy enough to just have now. So to as simple as that, that is also a success. So how then they can breathe by relishing it? How can they drink their glass of water? By celebrating life. Of course, now you can talk about multi-millionaires and billionaires for their material success. Then we can help them. Look, how you are just make sure that not be enslaved and entangled with the notion of material that you gain from transaction, which is very temporary. Nonetheless, you have done so on the expense of your life. Now we are here to say, look, how you must be able to celebrate your success, right? Mm-hmm. So this is, how I look at it. So, Fredrick and Kris and Ning and Pierre and everybody, I just want you to know the way I'm thinking about and how should we go and move forward on these things, right? So I will be very happy to participate at keynote, or I can, in the forum where they build, and I'm sure they are experienced, very good-hearted, with a lots of ideas and wisdoms to share. So I would like to hear, I would like to learn, and I would like to collaborate, so that I am not just a one-man army anymore. There I'm a little bit here, right now, one-man army, which is, I'm trying to make sure and everybody shoulders this responsibility. And I'm in a rush to hand it over to everyone and say, okay, you are the stakeholder of, you are the one who has responsibility to bring peace for our brothers and sisters all over the world. So, and I'm here, and anytime, whichever way you guys direct me, and I'm ready to follow, and not for myself and only, this is really something we all can involve, so that thousands of years to come, and we will be able to, people can cherish, and there's so much education that we need to, find people to, get it, because so everybody, I'm in one way because everybody in rush because life is too short, and then they don't want to accept that life is very short, and they don't want to accept that life can end any moment. So instead of accepting it, they try to just then distract themselves, that include myself time to time. So I think here we can really talk seriously and make sure we take the journey of life together in a meaningful way. And so this is what I'm thinking always, and I just thought to share this so that we have an easier way to collaborate and you know, accomplish something and spontaneously and effortlessly.
Okay. Can Dr. Fredrick, do you have some slide to share, right?
I do, yeah, and they're interesting because they are very aligned, I would say, with what Rinpoche was offering to us. So thank you so much, Rinpoche, for that. I I'm just sharing because sometimes I'm helped by thinking in pictures and stuff. So this is nothing less than just a very basic sort of sketch. I called what this is trying to do, and it's based on your work, Ning, and Kris, of course, and weaving universal peace, sufficiency economy, and IDGs into, sorry, so humans, places, and the planet, and some kind of a process to learn how to lead with and for life around us. So that recognition of ourselves in the context of everyone else, everything else, and life in its broadest. And I think that the process of learning that we are doing here should itself be based on what we want to make others able to do. And I think that's something around leading with and for life around us. And I think that is having a few sort of principles. Maybe it's we stand with each other. So like empathy, generosity, curiosity, learning, and kindness should guide our collaboration. We should put in here long-term thinking and that commitment as well. I think that's a very we learn as we go. So we share and learn that what needs to happen emerge. And sorry, and then making that clear that we can also really strive towards synergy between our ways to help drive shared ambition. Really being able to build together in a very concrete sense, I think is helpful. The process I was sketching out is a year process, or basically within this year. So I think we have a job to do to really become more attuned, more learning about each other's thinking and approaches, and we're on a good way and a good path doing that. So yes, in the team, we need some kind of a learning session with Master Rinpoche on the Eastern philosophy, the universal peace, all of that. We need a learning session on the sufficiency economy. We might also want to explore a bit about what we're saying, we're thinking around the IDGs. And then the next step, I like the concept of weaving. I think weaving is a gentle way of bringing the beautiful stuff, everything into some kind of new quilt without losing the different threads. So as personally, I like that term. And we should use ourselves, our tools and our conversations in different ways, and also maybe be using AI and other things to document our reflections and conversations to generate sort of things we can interact with, and then co-create the ways we want to illustrate this weave, how we want to make the connections between the different things we are speaking about credible, substantiating them with different things to communicate and make it useful for people. In the Q3, aligning with your thinking, Kris, it's a lot of the co-creation with leaders. So testing this weave with leaders and their organizations, maybe in some digital sessions, but also, of course, live if we can. We already seem to have that in your plan. And then maybe something later on, which is testing this weaving approach live. I don't know if there's an opportunity to invite leaders into a course in the University of Happiness and any other places where we can really offer some kind of training, leadership retreat based on this weaving. methods and approaches that you already have developed, and others. And I think finding a very attuned way to evaluate, learn this, not a crude kind of assessment way, but more like a learning process of how the people, what works for people and what is more or less helpful. And or I usually think about evaluation as a gardener. So what can we make more of? What do we want to put slightly less attention to? All of that. Sorry, there's people cleaning. I will try to just move around. Sorry. And then lastly, what kind of conclusions can we draw from this experience? And then we get moving on in a next year. Um, so my idea would then be that we are aiming to deliver four things, some kind of graphical model. I think that's very important. How do we portray this understanding? Some kind of publication so we can write and get others to understand both the model and some kind of practical learning approach and some kind of an evaluation approach. And what do we need for that? We spoke briefly about it. Of course, we need all of us in the team right now in the way we can commit. But we probably also need, so Pierre, of course, is a scientific writer as I see it. We might need a graphic designer. We might need time and resources to allocate to it. And we should cherish and have fun and appreciate each other and have a lot of joy in the process. So that's my sort of basic just thinking after what I heard last time and how this could potentially be done. What's your thoughts, my friends?
And you mentioned about inviting Eminence Rinpoche to maybe share something on the World Summit. And if in that case, what should be a work back schedule on from now to that we need to prepare some evidence, some case, or write up something before that time so that we can be able to share in some concrete way or something like that.
Yeah. No, I think if we have some versions of well, by the time like if we then in mid Q3 basically or end of Q3, no, even into Q4 to October, yeah. Then we would probably have had chances to develop this graphical model, some text that explains it, have had some processes of interaction with some organizations and their feedback and how can they make this. So I think that like for me the weave, the quilt, sort of that text, that's sort of one thing, and that's an outcome in itself. But then, and that could be used for many different things and many different situations afterwards, right? But we also want to showcase how this looks like when an organization or several organizations starts to interact with it. So I think the model in the first draft, some text around it, plus ways of showcasing some of these early steps would probably work what we could be hoping to be at in October. And then, of course, we could, if it's possible, like we could work towards more of a retreat or something that we can announce by the end of the year, or I don't know, Kris, that you don't know more practically or what is possible and so on. But that's how we can think about it. There's also another event which is also potential, but it's earlier. In end of July, we work a lot together with something called Initiatives of Change around the world that you may know. They have several parts of the world, but they also have a lot of work with Global Indigenous Dialogue, which is a group I'm working a lot with out of Canada. We have an event together at Ho Castle in Switzerland, which is then the 28th of July to the 1st of August. So, I mean, I don't know how how the agenda would look. But I'm part of the planning team there, so if we feel it would be possible, we could certainly have maybe a session sharing
Okay.
thoughts so far. Yeah, it's more a question of, again, of funding and people's time and so on. You know, it's an opportunity.
Okay. That's great. Pierre, you have anything for see the timeline and how to make the project movement of what we are doing? Can you share in your perspective?
If we would like to share something in October, I think that would make more sense for me right now. Because I mean, I'm not sure about everyone's schedule at the moment. But obviously we need to do like a thorough research, and then we need to then collaborate with these organizations and then implement our frameworks within the organization, and then see like a before and after kind of workshop survey kind of thing to make sure that we know what works and what don't work, like as Dr. Fredrick earlier mentioned. So I think we can try to work on this together. But I'm not sure, because in your professional opinion though, do you reckon that we can't finish this whole thing by September so that we can show it to people by October? Or do you think earlier is possible as well? Because we have to, yeah, there are so many things that we still need to do.
It is, and I also I think we still have to get to that point, which I expressed last time, and I think also we heard from Master Rinpoche. It's also what actual time can we put into it, and how do we make sure that we can. So it's dependent on that. How much time can we allocate, and how maybe can we find the funding for that? So I think it's sort of, that's why I'm a little hesitant to say what we can deliver when. And I can certainly only speak about myself in that sense, but also for the others, like how do we make that, time and resources available for it? So I think that's a thing to sort out. The other one is of course, if we don't have any funds for it, the time is going to be very limited that we can put in. But if there's more, like that space has to be resolved, I guess. I think that we've learned from some processes around how we are working with what we call integration into organizations of these ways of working, not the full set, which is even more complex, but just IDGs and approaches like that. And we should absolutely not think that's a quick process. Like it's not, but that said, of course, there are processes around. Yes, the first layer would be saying, okay, what is the reaction? We're speaking to some of the senior leaders that Kris and colleagues already have identified. We can run some, or before we go deep, we might want to, for example, run a couple of that's what I suggested. Also some digital sessions and some live sessions, maybe more in sort of a round table way, maybe, and also maybe some experiential parts where they can get their own. How would we go about this to make this ours? Like that kind of question from the model. And that could be done certainly into September. I don't think we would be in a stage where we can like start running the actual sort of programming based on it until a bit later. That's what I suggested that to be like really late during 2025. If a way of thinking would be from these organizations leadership that we have first in, then we design maybe a way for them to take it into their organizations, and then the first start of that process would be the end of the year, which may be bringing a few more people. central to driving the transformation in their organizations to come together and work out the way. And then maybe more stuff happens during 2026 around that. So that's how basically I'm thinking. But it depends also on the acceptability. First of all, we have to agree that this is something that like Master Rinpoche and the other colleagues we think is the right approach to take. So I think that's number one. And then, of course, knowing from your relationships, Kris, what is the commitment that the different organizations we started to speak to you think would have would be able to commit now and for maybe it's a 2-3 years actually plan. But I just started to sketch the first year.
I can work with them on their time schedule, and if we see the real transformation process and also the model that we maybe have a first draft, I think it's more
Exactly.
easier for them to see the commitment from their part. And also the number of the organization that we work with us during the period. I think it can be arranged, but I think we need to come up with some draft process and the model so that we can talk to them. And actually the head of the abbot at the King Ramanai and the master that I talked to yesterday, actually we're gonna have a workshop with the young leader this March. If we can come up with some like a draft model or something like that, we can experience something, and then we can get some feedback to develop in more detail on what we want to do. And I think that's gonna be the first initial stage. And Pierre suggests that if you have Dr. Fredrick, any what you call your initiative stage on, it should be look like something like this, something you can frame it and send it to us, and then we can help you customize, modify what it is, and then we can bounce back on it. I love your word, weaving. I think that would be the nice way to incorporate.
If I may add, sorry,
You
go on.
need some model, right? So that we can.
So because to my understanding, this project that we're doing is that we would want to combine like Western sort of framework and view and how to achieve that sustainable well-being. And we would want to incorporate Asian traditions or Eastern traditions, which is from the sufficiency economic philosophy, right? In those philosophy and frameworks so that we can do something that can be implemented for both the Eastern culture and Western culture and basically globally, right? So it would be a good idea for us to get some sort of base, what this sort of philosophy or framework would look like in the West from your perspective, and then we, the ones who's based in Southeast Asia, we can try to modify it and customize it, as Dr. Kris earlier mentioned, so that it can be most suitable as well for this market as well. And then we'll then send you back the framework that we've modified. And then we would want to see and hear your perspective, whether or not this is suitable for our European counterparts.
Yeah. I think you're right, but I think I learned something very strongly in the last conversation we had from His Eminence Rinpoche. It's the fact that this should probably sit on a universal ethic, like it should, and then yes, there are so the foundational layer, if we put it in that way, all I think we all have different kinds of ideas about the weave, and I think that's the beauty. But for me, it feels like the principles, the learnings, the teachings that Shaylapa Rinpoche has brought forward is like it's it's a whole lot deeper, if you want to use that word, than the qualities and abilities and skills that we have put into the IDG framework. They're helpful because they also help to be quite like there's some you know, it works in a communication way basically to bring, but they're they're empty if they don't have an underlying philosophy, right? They become just noticeable behaviors, right? But you need to fill that with another grounding, and I think that what is offered by Eminence Rinpoche is certainly that. The So if that's the universal, right, then and we can also speak IDGs in some ways can be hopefully now, just to tell you what is important also to notice is that I'm leading the global process right now, where we are listening in about what are wider perspectives on IDGs than we had in the first IDG frame. So that process is running in parallel. We're just now mobilizing the research teams around the world and so on. So we're going to come up with a new version of the IDG framework at the IDG summit. It's not going to be radically different, but it's going to be taking much more voices from many more parts of the world into account. It will keep the 5 dimensions that we have, but it may be allocating the name sort of skills and the descriptions in a slightly different way when we're coming up and speak what we can unify our views on. In the last month of this year, we're also going to be doing work on from different regions, different countries, what is some of the adaptation they need to do in their local regional version of the IDG framework. It should still keep most of the relationships so we can understand each other on the global level, but there might be nuance that we want to add. So I think it's super good. Like this process is also for me a way of thinking about how can we do these things to both bring what we share and also accept some of the things we might have to, but they're slightly more pronounced in some parts than the others, and we have to respond to. So I think that's also why we should find a good balance between what do we enforce, where do we listen, where do we suggest, where do we identify what's already the good ways to doing. What we've seen in the organizations in the 10, 15 countries we've been very active in is that we do have to recognize and understand context a lot.
Yeah.
Because when we the way that organizations go about changing themselves, for example, or work together to change themselves, is always also local, right? So there are ways of what you want to share, not share, the risk you're seeing. So that is very so we should be very playing the sort of, I usually use the metaphor of a reflective friend, right? So we suggest something, we hear what they try to do, we try to build. So it's a bit of that forth and back. Some cultures want more authority, the 13 implementation. And of course that could be going more there. But I think some of the values to create organizations that have the right conditions for IDGs also requires a lot of the humility and listening approach to facilitate integration. But of course, you guys are the ones to know what is an acceptable balance in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Nepal, and other countries for this. So I think we just have to respect the fact that we all have different pieces to bring to this learning journey, right? And yes, I'm happy to share what we've learned, but I'm also very happy to realize that a lot of that needs quite some significant reflections on how that would work well in business life in Thailand or Indonesia.
Okay. And do we can use the IDG that is existing framework?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can right now. We that's what's available at the moment. So yes, but and it's what I would want to suggest, which is going to be, that's a decision we have made. It's that the 5 dimensions that we are working on, so the being, the thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting, right?
Uh-huh.
They're still going to be the defining 5 in the new framework. So at that level, there's no problems at all. At the other one, we have tried to do these processes in 6, 7 different countries around before, and we see a lot of the similar things coming up, that we already have. There are some nuance so what we don't know now is when we're bringing all this data from all these 125 countries and more we have, I think, in the database, exactly what would be the things people would most prioritize. Uh, but it wouldn't be radically different from the new framework. I don't think so. I think there'll be some things that are more. One thing that is coming out quite clearly in some conversations. I don't know if it's going to be. It's this process of how do we understand knowledge. So and I think that's a very important recognition, right? The way we actually think we can know something has to be addressed and understood in different ways, and respectfully, respecting that there are different ways to know, that they all have a role to play. So that's just one example that doesn't really become so obvious in the current framework, but may come up more. Another one which is coming up often in many societies who have been living through very rough times, it's forgiveness,
Uh-huh.
which was never part of the people who were interviewed and did the first survey. But of course, when we gone to countries such as Rwanda and countries such as Colombia and so on, that's been living through very tough times, then that comes up very early on. So that's also likely to come in.
I see. Like a gratitude. I haven't seen.
Gratitude.
Yeah.
So we would look at the data and see like what comes up, and then ask the different teams to help to prioritizing and see what they think is the most important. So we we can't preempt the process, but you can, yeah, and that's going to be the case. We are going to take these kinds of like every 5th, something like that year, 6th year maybe. We're doing a new, because these things, some of these things, in the way they get expressed and the words we use for them, they're like phenomena there all the time. But that changes maybe sometimes. So that's our process of keeping the learning going.
So we stick with the 5, right?
Yeah.
Being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting.
Yeah.
And the detail inside may be changing
Fabulous.
from localization in each in part, right? Okay. So we see the map of what we think to that 5, and then we can update what you have any advice or suggestion, and maybe next week, are you still available to we try.
Next week, I am not available because I am away skiing with my kids.
I see.
I give them attention. That's the focus next week.
Okay. So how about
But the week
next
after
week?
is fine.
Next 2 weeks.
The week, yeah, it works fine.
Okay, next 2 week, and can we start like a 3:30 instead of 3 o'clock?
We can. I have to on the day on the week after, the week 11. I cannot do the Thursday, but I can do the Monday.
Monday, okay.
Yeah.
What date on Monday?
It's the 10th.
The 10th, right? Okay.
And that could be any time. Basically, I can do also later in the morning, or what if you're gonna want to go later in the afternoon, your time, that's fine. I have flexible opportunity there.
How about 10 on like a 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. in Thailand time? Is that okay for you?
For me, it's perfect. It's for everyone else.
Okay. How about Eminence, Rinpoche, is that okay for you on 10, 4 p.m.?
Yes, that's okay for me.
Okay. Pierre is okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we will have a couple of researcher in Thailand to join next time, so that we can when you mentioned about the designer, I see somebody who can help us in the framework of design with Pierre, and so that we can come up with something on the 10, so that you can take a look and see, hey, is it practical, or is it working with your concept in European? And we can try something on the middle or the end of March to the
Yeah,
King Rama
exactly.
9, that they will visit University of Happiness and see the reflection after that on what
Yeah.
is their testimony on what they're learning, and just like Pierre said, do and don't that we need to understand.
That would be fantastic. And we can, of course, use some of the time next time to help you plan for a conversation in that, if that works. So we, of course, it could be interesting to, bring some, maybe we can come up next time in the conversation into some reflective questions that could help add to our process. And if I may suggest also, that you feel that the slides I prepared is just a basic sketch, tweak them, use them. So it's considered shared, but they're in the chat right now. And maybe what I would be very excited with is if we could, with that framework of maybe one way of thinking about, we can collaborate, we co-create that. And maybe that also would mean that we spend a lot of the next time to listen to the wisdom of Master Rinpoche around these things, how you see some of these things, and we start to get a little insight into how the thinking in your perspective is going. And maybe the next session we can focus a little bit more on the sufficiency economy, and then I can have a session on IDGs. Because
Okay.
then we start ready to look at the weaving, right? Then we start to look at, okay, how do we then see how we can bring these different things together, and what is their, how do they align, and how do they support each other, and how can they be good? That will be my suggestion.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Okay, and maybe we
Sorry, I last week Ajarn Kang, he is a design like a being creator. He available this time, ka. Okay.
and I maybe offline talk to Eminence Rinpoche on his perspective on absolute happiness and perfect freedom, and we can add on some more dimension on IDG also. I think that will be great in sharing his perspective back to us.
Fantastic.
Okay.
And can I send my greatest thanks, and also congratulations in advance, Master Rinpoche, for the next week's celebrations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Happy
We're
birthday
just
in
having
advance.
a simple lunch at the monastery.
Next year I might celebrate the next anniversary.
Okay, we can go to Ghana then. Okay, thank you very much
for share slide, your slide.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
everyone.
สวัสดีครับ
ขอบคุณครับ
โอเคได้ไปสต็อกโฮล์มแล้ว
โอเค แล้วถามอาจารย์กั้งเรียบร้อยอาจารย์กั้งบอกได้ เดี๋ยวค่อยสรุปกับอาจารย์กั้งแล้วกันนะ
ก็เดี๋ยวเอาเดี๋ยวปิดก่อนนะ เดี๋ยว
ปิด
ค่อย
กัน
เดี๋ยวจะได้ record อันนี้ไว้
โอเคค่ะ thank you ค่ะ บ๊ายบาย